Hello, everyone. We're going to wait just a moment till everyone joins the chat room, and then we'll get started in just a second. So let's just give it a minute. Okay, excellent. Looks like our numbers have stabilized. Well, hello. Welcome to our webinar, Start Your Medical Journey. My name is Sue Barosse, and I'm the Director of Enrollment for the University of Queensland Ochsner MD program. So I'm happy you're joining us today. I am coming from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm on Ochsner's campus right now, and I'm happy to join you and have you be with us today. Before we get started, I'll give some information about our chat room. You are welcome to enter any questions into the chat room starting now, and we have panelists that will be able to either answer your question in the chat room and supply links, or we'll be able to answer them live as well after we finish the presentation. So I'll start with the presentation, and then we will open up the chat. Well, we're going to open up the webinar for our panelists to speak and share their medical journey with you. And then we will go on to a Q&A session. So I would like to introduce my panelists that are with me as well. I have some colleagues. Pete and Brooklyn and Scott are all colleagues. That's here. Scott and Brooklyn are in New Orleans, but Pete is joining us from Queensland. And then we have two current students, Nate and Karmveer, who will talk to you about their medical journey. Okay, so let me get started, and I'm going to share my screen and start the presentation. And remember, you can go ahead and enter questions into the chat room. Okay. Okay, and I think you can see that now in presentation view. Is that correct? All righty. Get started. Okay, well, I really like this slide because this shows us the St. Lucia campus, and right there where all our students are, and the place where our current students will be on St. Lucia, but there's also Hurston campus. So there are two campuses, but this is a view of St. Lucia. And this also I like because it shows where we are in the world. So we know where New Orleans is, of course, right there. And then we know where Brisbane is. It's on the east coast of Australia, a little bit below the Great Barrier Reef. So that's a little bit north of where you would be staying in class in Brisbane. So this medical school is a partnership between two powerhouse entities, the University of Queensland and Ochsner Health in New Orleans. So both of these institutions have been in existence for over 80 years. For example, University of Queensland began in 1936 and Ochsner began in 1942. So they're both over 80 years old and both have enjoyed a very strong presence in their communities and are really contributing in great ways. So the University of Queensland says it's a top 50 university, but actually if you go to US News and World Reports, you'll see they're listed at number 36. So a really strong university with a long history. And then the Ochsner Health is a large community innovator throughout the Gulf South, a large healthcare provider, and the largest employer in the state of Louisiana. And we have over 1,300 physicians working here and facilities throughout the Gulf South. So both strong entities that have come together for an innovative medical school program. So let's talk a little bit more about that, the MD program. Okay, so this is a 4-year MD program, and it is designed for ECFMG certification. It's designed for our students to complete a U.S. residency. So our students spend the first 2 years in Brisbane, Australia, at the University of Queensland. Then for years 3 and 4, you're in New Orleans, Louisiana, and you rotate your clinical service throughout the different facilities that are Ochsner facilities in the Gulf South. We do have some research opportunities. Research has been embraced by both of these entities very strongly. So you are available to have a higher degree by research. That's an opportunity for you. So there's a Master's of Philosophy choice and a PhD choice. So you could have an MD, MPhil, or an MD, PhD. And we say it's intercalated because that means you start off your first 2 years in Australia in medical school, and you complete 2 years of med school, and then you stop medical school, and then you begin your master's work or your PhD work. And you're still in Brisbane while you're doing that. You probably will be able to finish the MPhil in a year, but the PhD, as we know, takes longer than that. So as long as you do come to New Orleans and finish your PhD, at the time you're finishing or before you finish your MD, that's how you go through that section. If you are interested in research, but you don't want to add a whole nother degree, there is the Ochsner Students Research Hub. And if you go to our website, you see the research tab, you can click on that and scroll down to the research hub. So I did that, and I just, as an example, put some of the research opportunities that are on there. There are 2 pages of opportunities, but these are some that give you an idea of what types of research is available for you to work on. Talk about medical school student support. We know that our students are not just on the other side of the world, but they're in the Southern Hemisphere too. So there's a lot of things that's different, right? The academic year is different, the seasons are different, and it's far away. You're far away from your family and your support system here in the U.S., and we realize that. So we do give you a lot of support when you're there. So let's talk about the different ways of support. There's the well-being support. This is sort of like your regular student health service. We can go for anything that you need, but if you're not feeling well, mental health, adjusting to Australia, getting ready for exams, anything that you need, you can go there to the medical student support service. Then there's also the personal advisor network. This digs a little bit deeper and gives high impact quality support to our students. It also helps foster this community of connectedness. University of Queensland is a very collaborative university, and this all contributes to that. We have medical societies. So the UQ-Ochsner medical societies, or consists of the class after class. When you enter, it's divided into 5. There are 5 different societies. And when the class is divided into 5, each group belongs to one of these societies. They're named in honor of the founding fathers of Ochsner. So there's the Ochsner Society, Urban Society, and so forth. So they are all led by a faculty physician, teaching faculty, who has a special interest in mentoring students. So you're in these groups, and they do promote a sense of community. The society head will mentor you throughout your 4 years. They just came back earlier this spring from visiting the first year class, and their advisees. They're probably the person who's going to write your letter of recommendation for residency. And there's also quite a social component to it, and that's our students get points for different things that they participate in. So it's community work within the area, or if it's helping out on webinars like tonight, these students will receive points for that, which are tallied, and at the end of the year, they get the bragging rights and the big trophy, and say that for the whole year until we go through the next year and see what society will win that trophy. So it's really kind of fun, spirited event as well. So USMLE support is important. Ochsner and Queensland definitely wants you to do well on the passing the board exam first time, for sure. So there's a lot of support that you have. There's online resources that you have. There are practice exams and the big first aid book that you get in the beginning of the first year. There's a dedicated course that you will take in your second year that will help you prep for this exam. So, and there's multiple choice questions that you can study as well to practice for this. So hopefully everyone does great with all this work that you have for USMLE, because we definitely want you to do well in the board exams. Then there's also peer support. So the peer support, there's a few different groups. When you're in Queensland, there's the University of Queensland Medical Society, and when you're in New Orleans, it's OMSA, Ochsner Medical Student Association. It's sort of like a regular student association or an SGA, where there's the president and the different officers, and there's a lot of peer support in that, and also peer support within the special interest groups. So these are really fun. They're student-led by any interest that our students may have. One way, an example is there's interest groups for each field. So if you're torn between radiology and cardiology, you can join these groups, both groups. And you can hear from speakers. It could be a physician or a resident that's talking about his own call schedule and what his day is like. So you can learn a lot about these different specialties in there. But there's a variety more than just specialties as well. And let's talk about the match. So the reason I want to talk about the match is because your degree comes from the University of Queensland, which means that you would enter the match as an international medical graduate. And as we know by this slide, and I'm going to show you at the last column, that's non-US students, international medical graduates, and that's the rate of matching. These stats come off the National Residency Match Program website, NRMP. And if no one wants to enter the match with a 59% match rate, right? So that's why we have this slide created. You can see the different years throughout, and the number of positions are far less than the number of applications for residency programs. So we know just simply by looking at those numbers, someone's not going to match. And no one that goes through 4 years of medical school wants to be in that, number of someone that doesn't match. So let's look at these stats in bolded, or the UQ-Ochsner stats for how we have matched throughout these years. The empty seniors are the regular stats for any U.S. student that's matching in the U.S., and that's pretty good, all in the 90th percentile. We have DO seniors in there just for comparison. But as you can see, throughout these numbers, these percentages, the UQ-Ochsner program oftentimes outpaces the U.S. match rate. And when you're thinking about the bell curve with the non-U.S. IMG and 59% at the top of your curve, UQ-Ochsner is the outlier all the way in the tails, right? We have the 99%, 96%. So since the inception of this school, which started in 2009, they've always been in the 90th percentile and oftentimes outpacing the U.S. And I think this is a testament to both of these entities and the strength that they bring to residency and to training students. So with Queensland being a strong medical school, over 80 years old, and with Ochsner being a strong foundation, innovative leader, and excellent clinical trainer in the New Orleans area, then they also come together to train their students really well so they perform well in the match. So let's look at our match that happened this March. I wanted you to see the different areas that we match in, our students match in, and this is just a sampling of the diversity of where our students match throughout the U.S. It truly is all throughout all of the states. We have our alumni and graduates, and very much not just matching in the New Orleans or Louisiana area, but throughout the U.S. And here's a big overlooking view of some of the historical matches we've had throughout time in the different areas, and showing you the diversity of where our students match overall year to date. It's just a sample, but it gives you an idea of where our students match. And so these are very first stages of entry, where much places to match. Okay, let's talk about our academic and requirements. So we have minimal requirements for entry. We have an MCAT score with a 504 minimum. So we do need to meet the 504 or higher. If you have less than 504, we would ask that you retake the MCAT so that to attain that score higher. For GPA, we need an A or B average. So 3.0 to 4.0 in the US. Queensland uses a 7.0 scale, so I'll just point that out. That's why I usually say A or B average. So we need those, and we use that, and we say that that comes from your key degree. Your key degree is your most recently obtained degree. So this is not a comprehensive GPA. It's the GPA that is on your most recently obtained degree. For subject prerequisites, we only have two. We don't have 10 subject prerequisites. It's only two. It's integrated cell and tissue bio, so cell bio, and physiology. So we ask that you fulfill the proficiencies that are required by University of Queensland. There'll be an assessment on your transcript. But if you don't have those, or don't fulfill the proficiency requirement, University of Queensland will send you an online option for you. Okay. Once you have that, we interview you. So the multiple mini interview is assessing your personality. So the University of Queensland Ochsner is looking for the right personality type, right? That you're kind and compassionate, and you have great communication skills, and your motivation for studying medicine. So all these things we look at in the interview. The interview is 8 10-minute interviews all in a row, all testing you on different personality domains. So as I said, the academic calendar year is different. It starts in January. This year, our first year class will begin class on February 4th, the first Monday of February. And right now we have our we have to update our slides. Sorry about that. We are open for January 2026 and January 2020 start date. So we have 2 years open at the same time. And you can go on right now for the free in-house application and apply for any of these intakes. Since we have a free in-house application, there's no secondary application, so no cost of that for that as well. It's strictly totally free. We do not require that you submit any letters of recommendation, nor that you write a personal statement or essay. And there's no resume collected. And we're not looking for clinical experience or volunteer experience. And the reason for that is we do not want anything to bias the multiple mini interview. Actually, 50% of the decision lies in the multiple mini interview, and we want to learn about you directly from you. So we do not collect any of these documents. There are only 10 course, there are no 10 course prerequisites, there are only 2 course prerequisites, right? We discussed them. And you can sort your application without the MCAT score. If you have your date, you should have to upload something in that field to be able to submit. So you could upload a snapshot of your verification that when you scheduled. If you have not yet scheduled, you could just upload a date note saying that you have not yet scheduled the MCAT, but will let us know as soon as you do. Okay, so let's talk about fees. So this is the fees for this current year. I think we're going to look at this and confirm if it's going to be the same coming up shortly for the incoming class. And what's good about the fees is that you are able to fill out a FAFSA, which will cover enough living expenses and tuition for all 4 years. follow that up with this great slide in that we do have funding. So Ochsner knows the caliber that you're trained to, and they would like to keep you on working for us. So in these fields that you see, family medicine, internal medicine, peds, internal medicine, primary care, psychiatry, Ochsner will agree to pay third and fourth year tuition for you up front. That's the 135. That's the cost of third and fourth year tuition. So they will pay that for you up front if you agree to work for an Ochsner facility for 5 years after you finish your residency. So I like that. I call it the 50% off sale. It's more serious than that, but it's true. It pays for half of your tuition. Okay, so here are demographics for the 2024 cohort. The gender is pretty close and split. It's a little bit favors for the female. Average age is 26, but we have a wide range of ages. The average MCAT this year is 509. And then we have for complete degree, about 20% of those that's entering submitted the master's for their GPA, and then about 81% for their bachelor's. I think that's our last slide. It surely is. That's our email address if you have any inquiries. And that's my office phone number, 703-6163, which you can call at any time. I am going to stop sharing the screen. Okay. And then it's time now to move on to listening to our students and let them tell you about their medical journey. So, Karmveer, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your journey?
Yeah. So I'm Karmveer. I'm almost done with my third year now here. And I guess just I had a kind of complicated journey to medicine. I originally applied to film school and was gonna do that. And then while I was making my documentary abroad, actually, is when I fell in love with medicine, like just seeing like healthcare inequity across. So I filmed in India. So just seeing that there made me realize like there's more I want to do than just filming. So I realized, I should go into medicine. And by then, the application cycle had already closed for medicine, like med school in the States. And I applied for a master's program, did my master's in Philly. And after that, COVID hit, which kind of shut down all MCAT centers. So then there was another year where I was just kind of trying to figure out how to apply, figure everything out in COVID. And then I found a pamphlet when I was cleaning out my room, actually, for UQ that I like went to some med school fair back in undergrad. And it was just under my bed. And I found that pamphlet in COVID. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll apply. We'll see where this takes us. Applied, got an interview, did the interview, didn't really prepare, honestly. And then, got in. And they gave us 3 weeks to accept whether we want to go or not. And by then I was waitlisted at schools in the States, and it wasn't enough time I had to make a decision. And in undergrad, never really got a chance to study abroad. So this felt like a good plan and like a good idea to just have an adventure. And then I was already interested in learning about other healthcare systems and just trying to see the world, honestly. And so I said yes. And yeah, it started med school about, I guess, 3 years ago now. And so once I got there, Australia was great. I actually don't like the weather, which I know is very bad. Most people love the weather and love the heat. I really did not like the heat, but other than that, it was beautiful. You get to travel a lot. I feel like we don't really go to that part of the world. States is so far, it's like a 20-hour flight. So once I was there, I kind of took that to my advantage. Went across every break, had a trip planned to Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Tasmania. And then during the longer breaks, I had friends come in, family come in, went to Thailand, Bali, just try to travel as much as I can. And I feel like the program's really great where you have enough time to study and travel. It's not you're not really worked to the bone where you don't have time to do anything else except study, which I feel like is a big cliche for med school. So yeah, that's really great about the program. There's a lot of breaks kind of like interspersed throughout the year. So you're not really like working, consistently for like 6 months before you get a break. It was like every few weeks you have some days off and you get to kind of plan a trip and make the best of it, which was really great. So yeah, 2 years in Australia went by really fast. And then this year is insane. I can't believe we're done with third year and I have one more year left. But transitioning, honestly wasn't too bad. I think like our cohorts are really great where most of us have friends in like years ahead of us. So they kind of helped us out. And the same thing for when I moved to Brisbane, I had upperclassmen tell me where to live, how to get housing. And so that kind of carried over when we moved to Australia, we all just texted people that we knew were a year ahead of us. They told us which apartment complexes to go to, where not to live, where to get food, where to buy your cars, what kind of car to get, where not to park. And like honestly, everything was very well laid out. There's like a OMSA guide that I think Nate might talk about. You should know more about that. And like it was just a very smooth, seamless transition. We got here, like apartments were found before we even got here, since the upperclassmen already lived in these complexes. We like trusted them. So there was really no stress, honestly, coming here. And then we had our white coat ceremony. So that was a great start to the year. And so that was a lot of spiel, but I think I really enjoyed the program. It's been great. I don't think I have anything like negative to really say about it. Met a lot of good friends, a lot of good faculty in both continents. I think friendships that are gonna last. I think a really cool thing about the program is that we get to go back our fourth year. And at the start of the program, I thought that was kind of going to be annoying to have to like pick up and go back to Australia, after moving here. But after you spend 2 years there, you make so many connections, so many friends, that it's honestly so great that you know that you're going to be able to come back at least one more time in your fourth year to get to see everyone again, get to see the faculty, your old friends. So I think that's really cool that we have that option. Not an option, I mean, we have to go, but I think it's actually very good that we have to go. And then so right now, I guess I'm just studying for step 2 now, trying to plan for my match. I'm trying to match into psych probably. And like, I'm actually in my psych rotation right now. So the faculty's been great. Like all the residents really love the program here and they're really selling it to just match at Ochsner at this point. But we've had a really good match with psych. We've had somebody match at Mayo. We've had people match like West Coast, which is known to like be hard to match at, especially like California, anywhere in California. And so we've had students match there. So like, yeah, just a lot of positives for the program. And I guess that was a big spiel, but if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat and I'm sure Nate will do a better job at explaining things a little more professionally.
I think you did a great job. And I like hearing you talk about how it's an adventure, and the weather and the heat and just housing. All of that sounds really great. And explaining how you get a few breaks throughout the year. So that's great for our prospective students to hear. So thank you. All right, Nate, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your medical journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everybody. My name is Nate. I'm a fourth year medical student in the program. I'm also the president of the Student Association, which we talked about earlier. So my journey to the program sort of started in a similar sense to Karmveer's, actually. I was on a night shift as a scribe in the emergency department, and I was just Googling around on the computer about medical programs. I had never heard about the UQ program. I was an undergraduate student in Washington, D.C. I was like, hey, this sounds pretty cool. A lot of us pre-meds don't have the opportunity to study abroad because of all those prerequisite courses that we're taking. My undergraduate degree is in public health, so I was very fascinated by other sort of Western medical systems, especially the mixed public-private system that Australia has. So I quickly rose up through the ranks of where I was considering going to medical school. And before I knew it, it was my top choice. As soon as I got accepted, I committed, I withdrew my other applications. And I was very excited to go to Australia, but then COVID struck. I was 1 year ahead of Karmveer, so I actually ended up doing my first year online, which was a really unique experience. Fortunately, one that you guys will never have to deal with. But I'm happy to share that the university was incredibly supportive during this time. The reach of the University of Queensland is so much more than we're exposed to in the United States. It's the Australian equivalent of an Ivy League institution. They have so much influence, so many support systems in place that it's impossible to get lost in the system, which I know is something that we feel often as medical school applicants. So that's really my journey to the program. What attracted me to the program is that experience on the two continents, as well as, like Karmveer was saying, the travel opportunities. And something that I have found really rewarding is this program attracts people who are like-minded. It attracts people who are willing to take that risk and move around the world without knowing anybody. So if that is something that speaks to you, know that you'll meet some of your best friends that you could imagine in this program. An overview of my time in New Orleans. It's sadly starting to come to an end now. I have only a few more weeks in the school, and then I'll be sticking around for a few more months with match going on. But it's a great city. There's so much culture here. There's so much good food, too much good food, if anything. People are always trying to come visit, and the people who are in New Orleans and are from New Orleans are so welcoming. They're so happy that we're here experiencing the culture, and they definitely do try and convince us to stay, which I'm not opposed to. In my opinion, what are the strengths of our program? From a purely medical perspective, I think they do an exceptional job of getting us involved in clinicals early. This is something that a lot of US medical schools are shifting to as well, where we now begin rotations as first-year students. Sure, it's not in the same capacity as a third or fourth-year student where you have a significant workload because you just don't have that requisite knowledge yet, but it is an early involvement just getting you comfortable in the environment. And I can say that from away rotations I've done at other institutions and with students rotating at Ochsner here with us, the UQ students come in with a lot more confidence and comfort in the clinical environment as a result of that. Especially in Australia, you're given extreme amounts of independence as a student very early on, and that translates really well as a strength in the States. Let's see, and talking about my exposure to two healthcare systems, what I've learned is that things aren't perfect here in the States. I think we all know that. And I think that we are in a very unique position to take the knowledge that we've gained in Australia and bring that back with us here. We have programs that students have set up and run in New Orleans to expand healthcare access to our community members. We have free clinics that we can volunteer with, where the faculty is incredibly supportive of. You have these student-run clinics. And how is this valuable? I mean, how is it not valuable? You can talk about this during your interviews, and your residency programs are going to eat it up, but they're also going to reflect on this experience and how it's changed you as a student. We feel supported, appreciated, like a student leader in our community. And then what are my plans for the future? I've alluded to it, but I'm applying to residency right now. I'm applying to a radiology residency all over the country, like Karmveer was talking about. It really does feel like the world is your oyster. I know if you're Googling around on Reddit, I did the exact same thing. You'll see people who are afraid of going to a program that's going to label you as a USIMG. But we have the reputation now where our alumni have traveled across the country. People have heard of the program. They're aware of our caliber of students. And you have the opportunity to do away rotations during your fourth year as well, just as any US medical student would be doing through the exact same online portal. And I was showing up at my away rotations, introducing myself, and people had no clue that I was an international medical student until I told it to them. And then they didn't care in the slightest. So you can put your anxieties aside in that boat. It really is a place where you can come as an individual, flourish, self-support yourself, but always have that safety net of the UQ community.
Thank you, Nate. I like hearing about the confidence that our students have by entering into their clinical rotations, and that you're just as viable as any US school is, and probably even better. So thank you for that. Okay, guys, I see we have a few questions in the chat room, but definitely now is the time that you can enter those. So I do see that Hai Tran had a question about a 1 year's master degree. And if it is a full master degree, it should be fine. But all documents go to the International Assessment Team in Queensland for their review. And if they wanted anything different, they would request that. But if this is a full master's degree that you did complete 1 year, then it sounds to me like that should work. Okay. Let's see, we have a question from Amelia. And this is about, so Karmveer, you talked about going back into Australia for a rotation. And Amelia is wondering if that's for the whole year or just part of it. Do you want to talk about what your rotation was like?
Yeah, so we get to, it's only part of it. I think Scott did a good job answering that. It's only for 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. So that's just what we call one block of med school. And a lot of us just, and we get to pick when we get to go back, which is really great. We most of us got our first preference. So during your third year, you'll get to pick what time based on, when you're taking step, when you're planning to apply for residency, and what your other electives are. You get to decide when you want to go back to Australia. So it doesn't really mess up your schedule at all. It's actually completely you have a lot of autonomy and you get to pick when you want to go back. And so it's actually really great.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Hi also wants to know about students with accent and like English as a second language. And we have many students that are English second language in our program. We have a good bit of diversity. So that's great. I encourage you to apply, and I don't think that's a roadblock at all. Nate or Karmveer, do you have any experience with any of your classmates who might have been English second language?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an interesting point because, we all go to Australia and we're the ones with the accents. So it's not something that would be a barrier at all. You'll encounter every type of accent in Australia and here in New Orleans. So I think I have the hardest time understanding some of the Cajun patients here in New Orleans, and I've been doing it for 2 years now. So don't let an accent get in your way.
Okay. So Allison wants to know about the physiology prereq, and you want more specifics. So if you go onto our website, UQ-Ochsner, you'll see the different tabs, and go to the admissions tab, and then within admissions, you'll see admissions criteria. So part of the criteria would be the prerequisites. So you want to go to prereqs. There is a link that will bring you to a library that Queensland is compiling, and it's a library of the U.S. schools and what courses at U.S. schools fulfill the requirement. So you can find out if your school's in there, and if it does have the course number that fulfills the requirement for physiology. When it takes a little bit clicking to get there, but I think you have to enter as an international student. So I think there's 2 different boxes, one for domestic Australians and one for international. So you enter as international, and then you scroll. I think you see it's a large library. You have to scroll all the way down to find your university. If your university is not in there, it's because they haven't done that assessment with them, that school yet, but they have as much information as they can. So I'd say hopefully that gets you there. If any questions, just send us an email and we'll get you to link to that page. So it says if we are currently applying to the US MD program, the acceptance decisions be made around the same time. So we make decisions throughout the year. It is a different time schedule than US schools. So we interview, and we have different rounds of interviewing, and we keep interviewing till we fill the class. So in our first round, after we interview, it should be in March, we think we'll have our first interview round. And then after that, about 2 weeks after the interview, then offers will go out to that group. Then we'll have another interview in summer, another in the fall. And then we just keep sending out decisions as we progress through the year. So our academic year is different, right? We start in January. So when we come into January 2025, we're going to be preparing to interview those that have submitted applications for January 2026. And we'll go throughout all of 2025, having interview rounds and sending out offers. We keep our application open until it looks like we're going to fill the class. And then we'll close applications for January 2026, and probably in the fall after our last interview round. So this year, I think we closed sort of mid-September. So that's usually how that goes. The dates are always a little bit different, so, but generally around that time. Okay. Do students find out their match before or after graduating from UQ-Ochsner? Okay, so that's an interesting question of timeline as well. So congratulate Nate because he's getting ready to graduate in November. So mid-November, he'll graduate. And he will not know where he's going to match until March. So that gives a little bit of time. It's sort of like a built-in gap, which our students seem to really appreciate because after 4 years of med school, you have a little bit time off to visit family or travel. So Nate, do you want to talk about your plans for after graduation and before match?
Sure, yeah. So I'll actually be here in New Orleans. I'm completing a dual MD MBA through a partnership that Ochsner has with the Loyola University of New Orleans. So that's a program you can apply to in between your second and third year. It runs concurrently during your third and fourth year as a part-time class, and then you complete a capstone project and some in-person classes / sort of internship for those 6 months. But I'm definitely looking forward to some time outside of the hospital with a little bit more travel flexibility. I have classmates who are going to spend some time backpacking around Europe. I have other classmates who are completing research fellowships offered by Ochsner. Those 6 months are time that I very much appreciate having compared to other medical students who have like 3 weeks to graduate and then move who knows where.
Thank you, Nate. See that there's a question about other scholarships and funding in that page, in the page as well. There's a scholarship link, and I think Scott is adding some links to answer these questions to our chat. So if you could scroll through, you might be able to see that. And I have a question about the MCAT. We took it this May. What's the latest deadline to apply for the 20? I think it's mean 26. I would say yeah, apply for May should work because we do have all rounds of interview. So I think in general, we usually say take the MCAT before June 30th, because at least then we get your MCAT scores for fall, late summer, or whatever fall rounds that we have. But it might get kind of close to the end if you wait longer than that. But there's a chance. I can't say no. There's a chance. Okay, so we talked about the apps. The latest ticket MCAT is June 30th, but again, it could work if you take it later. And we haven't started this yet, so I can't tell how, how fast we feel or anything like that. But I in general recommend prior to. So we're going to have a question about increasing diversity. Well, we do diversity recruitment, but that's definitely for sure. To different HBCU schools and attend their conferences. Then we also have something coming up this next week called SACNES, which is for Latinos and Chicanos. So we do recruitment on the front end to increase diversity. All schools do want to increase diversity in their student population, so it is something that we definitely pay attention to. Okay, question about prerequisites. You can take these prerequisite equivalents anytime. Yeah, before you have to do it not before orientation. You have to do it before you can finalize your place in class. So you do have to finish any prerequisites prior to fully being accepted. You cannot hold your spot or save your spot until you finish prerequisites. And thank you, Scott, for putting that in. And how do our match rates compare to IMGs, other IMGs? As you saw in that slide, IMG right now on average is a 59% match rate, and we had a 99% match rate. So we do well in compared to other IMGs. There are some that are more prestigious than others. So I'd say if you're considering any other IMGs, do some investigation and find out how they're matching in particular. If you do research, it does increase the length of time that you're in school. And the scholarship, again, we have a scholarship link, and you can read all about those in there, within the link. I'm not sure that it's just for Latinas. I think it's for all Latino population of our school students. And talk about more about housing in Australia for the year. So, so either Nate or Karmveer, would you like to talk about how you managed housing in Australia?
Yeah, I guess I can do that. So there's like, I guess there's two ways. One, I saw previous students make spreadsheets that you'll probably have access to once you get accepted on Facebook, and students will list their apartments that they are trying to, get the lease out of, and you can get look at those apartments virtually. Most students, like during my second year, I did video like FaceTime calls with like incoming classmen to show them my apartment if they wanted to take over my lease. And so that was one option. Another option was just kind of going online on like their website, on like an apartment realtor website, and you just look at housing. And the good thing about housing there is that it's usually furnished. And when you do the math with like the conversion rate, you can find a pretty decent place for cheaper than you would find in the States. Once you get there, you have to, it's kind of like a lottery system. You go and there's a bunch of people at that housing place at the same time you're looking at it, and you have to apply to get it, which seems daunting, but most students find a place. I think I only looked at like 2 apartments, and then before I like was already like accepted into like a complex. There's a lot of housing, there's a lot of apartments, and there's so many areas to look at there. So it's not, there's really no, it's not really that complicated, and most students find it within like a week or 2. There's also UQ also provides like student housing. So if someone is having trouble trying to find apartments or having trouble with the application process, there was a student, it's called Student One or SCAPE, which is just a building, which is like 2 buildings that UQ provides. You can pay weekly there and stay there until you find an apartment. So I did that for a week before orientation. And while I, had my stuff there, had a place to stay, I just went around, looked at apartments. And then, like I said, like after my second visit to an apartment complex, like sent in my application, and I like got accepted and moved into my new place. And it's already completely furnished, so you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah. Pretty good experience. Facebook is really helpful, the page, because the upperclassmen are really looking out for those that are coming in, and can be very quite helpful. Thanks, Scott, for doing a great job and supplying links to our chat room so everyone can look at that and pick up the links. That's important. I do see a question from Tal about the types of visas. Nancy, you want to talk about what your experience of paying your visa?
It's really a pretty simple process. You go through the Australians immigration website. It's very well organized. It's a very modern website. They tell you the exact steps to do. The university also has a guideline of the exact steps to do. Somewhere floating around, there was even one with screenshots, and it's like, click this, click that, click this. And then they send it to you. It couldn't be easier, honestly. Once you get your acceptance, that's all they need to approve you.
Okay. Looks like we're caught up with questions. So I guess if you have any others, we've got 10 minutes left that we could spend. So if you have other questions, please feel free to enter into the chat room. So Karmveer, I know you talked about not liking the heat in Australia. What is winter time like? Does it get chilly?
Yeah, I mean, obviously no snow in Brisbane, but it does get, I think the winter time is like the good weather. It's fall weather for us. If you were from like the East Coast, you know what I mean. It's fall weather. It's like perfect. It's like sweater weather. You're not too cold, too hot. It was great then. So I guess I take it back. I don't hate the weather all the time, just the summer. And then definitely if you travel, like Tasmania was insanely cold and I was not ready for that. So bought a coat once I landed in Tasmania because I was not prepared for it to snow. Melbourne is also very cold. So yeah, I guess there's a mix of, it depends on where you go in Australia, you'll see a lot of mix of weather. But yeah.
So, again, questions coming in. See what some that are looking for the right. Let's. One other question, I know that you said from here that you thought of it as an adventure in Australia and that you had time to go visit other countries. How many times a year might that be that you have time off enough that you could go for a little side trip?
So I think because like I visited countries close to Australia, so flights like my max was like 8 hour flight time, and we get like week-long breaks throughout the semester, and then we had I think like about 2.5 weeks in between the two semesters. So I think about like at least like 3 times during the year you can do like an international trip, if not more.
Awesome. Is it quite common that the group that students will take trip, or do they just take time to relax? Probably both, right?
I think it probably both. I mean, I had a lot of friends, like we all just made plans and like I think it was something to look forward to, like, get through these like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then we're gonna go to this country or this place. So I think it was like a night, like we thought of it as a break to get to go and travel.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. Sounds like fun. So I'm not sure if our chat room is seeing our links. There, I am able to see your links, but I don't know that you're able to see ours. So I'm not sure what that functions, but you can certainly, yeah. So the answer to the emergency medicine question is yes, you'll certainly rotate an emergency medicine, and you have the opportunity to rotate in many specialties, and you have an elective where you can rotate in any specialty too. So you do have electives as well. Okay. So if you have any questions, definitely email us at the email address, which was oshner.med@inquire.uq.edu.au. And again, I'll put that in our chat, but I'm not sure that you're going to see it. So, and then there were quite a few questions about research. So if you go to the admissions tab, again, you'll see a research section within that. And you can read about that you have to apply for the research degrees to be added and be selected for that. Okay, so this is a MD degree. So a question about the degree. The degree comes from the University of Queensland, and it's an MD degree. But the program is designed for you to go through a U.S. residency, which is all part of ECFMG. Any student in the U.S. that wants to practice medicine in the U.S. must complete a U.S. residency. So once you match and complete your residency, you're eligible to practice medicine in the U.S. And anyone that's holding a degree from the University of Queensland is able to practice medicine in Australia. So you will have both. Again, you get to practice medicine on two continents, and you also get the global perspective of medicine. Since, as Nate said, it's quite different in the U.S. as it is in Australia. So you do graduate with better understanding of medicine more on the global stage. All right. Well, it looks like our questions have slowed, and as we're at the end of our webinar, so I definitely want to thank our panelists from Karmveer and Nate Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your personal medical journey. And Scott, people work hopefully people being in the background and helping us with all the logistics of the webinar. So everyone have a great night and thank you for joining us. I hope to see you again and email us with any questions. Have a good night, everyone.